Hello everybody, Shinjo here, welcome back to the channel, and it is officially another Pokemon Day. Whether or not the new Pokemon games or Pokemon spin-off games that we want actually get announced, it's a nice time to reflect on everything that Pokemon has done. I know, especially with the new games, people have been a lot more critical of Pokemon, but I'm gonna take this Pokemon Day to celebrate Pokemon. And the best way that I think that I can is by listing off my top 10 Pokemon. I did do this 3 years ago, but back when that happened, the Scarlet and Violet games haven't been announced. The DLC for Scarlet and Violet hasn't even been out. And I don't even think Legends Arceus was a thought at that point. So with a new generation being released and my taste on certain Pokemon changing, I thought that this would be the best time to list off my top 10 Pokemon. Obviously, before I begin, these are only my personal opinions, and if you've seen any content on my channel, especially my top 10s, you could probably guess some of these. But before I begin, I do have one honorable mention, for that is Ogerpon. I really wanted to find some way to include Ogerpon, but even among new Pokemon, it's still a lot more recent because it was only the middle of last year that it was released. It's just really cool to have a mythical Pokemon that has a subplot and a story involved with it rather than being distributed online. Plus, it's just really cute in the game. I like its different masks and the different types that it has. Overall, just a really solid mon, but I felt that it would be unfair to include it in the top 10, mainly because of recency bias. But with that taken care of, we can begin the official top 10. And I'm starting this with another Paldea native Pokemon, Tinkaton. I don't think it's a surprise that this is my favorite Pokemon from Paldea, especially since I believe that it was my favorite from Paldea when I did make that list. I feel like I'm just going to repeat what I talked about with Tinkaton before. It's a really cute design, a really chaotic design, especially the fact that it whacked Pokemon with its big hammer and as a rivalry with Corviknight. It's a really solid typing, and the first Steel Fairy that I can say that I really liked. Klefki I was a little bit mid on. Magearna is fine, but again, a mythical and no real story behind it made it hard to connect with. But Tinkaton, especially reading its Pokédex entries, is just a menace, and I love it. The main reason that it's this far back is the same as Ogerpon, recency bias. I didn't feel like it would be fair to put a new release Pokemon further up on the list rather than an old Pokemon. Number 9 is Mew. Kind of along the similar vein of Ogerpon, especially with both of them being mythicals, and Mew being the first one and spawning all sorts of playground rumors like Mew under the truck. Had a really great premiere in the movie that it was in alongside Mewtwo. It's just really cute. Psychic types, I don't really say I'm a huge fan of them, but there are a few that I like. And it's really solid as a first mythical, and the fact that Mew can learn a variety of moves makes it so you can incorporate it into any spot on your team. Number 8 is going to be Ribombee. Again, like other ones, I know Ribombee was on my lists for their specific regions before, but I remember the instant that I saw this thing, I fell in love with it. Probably before I even knew its typing. It's just a really cute design. I love the little scarf that it has. And while I'm not big on using special attackers versus physical attackers when it comes to battling, Ribombee is just a really solid mon. It is definitely really frail on the defensive sides, but it's just really speedy and really hard-hitting special attack-wise. And in a region like Alola, where a lot of the Pokemon are slow, you need a quick special attacker. Can't help but smile anytime I see this thing. At number 7, and I promise all of these aren't going to be the same story, is Hattrem. Yes, another cute Pokemon, but I promise not everything's gonna be cute. From the whole entire line, I prefer Hattrem the most. I don't know what exactly it is. It might be that it has an oversized hat, and it just walks around using the parts of the hat on its sides. It might also be that it's really cute, but its dex entries are just terrifying. Kind of like Tinkaton, where it has that chaotic energy, and especially Hattrem going out of its way to pummel anybody that has strong emotions. Although that might be Hatterene, I'm not exactly sure. But this thing is just a really cute design, and I don't know this for sure, but I think with a Hattrem Eviolite, it might be more defensive-wise compared to Hatterene. But then again, with Hatterene, you get the fairy type. I'm not as big on the design as Hatterene as I am Hattrem. Hattrem is just really adorable, and I love it. At number 6, we're finally getting some OG representation with Aipom. Not exactly OG in the sense of Gen 1, but Johto is basically tied together with Kanto, so I feel like you can allow it. It's a really cute design, but it's also really cool at the same time. I know for a fact that this thing isn't super viable, especially in a competitive sense, even with an evolution. I think the most you could do is fake out normal gem with Ambipom with Technician. I just really like Aipom. The fact that Ash got one in the Battle Frontier may be influencing this a little bit. Because I'll be honest, when it came out in Johto, I didn't even give this thing a second look. Especially with so many better normal types in the region. But ever since the Sinnoh region, I just felt an affinity towards monkey Pokemon. So, at the end of the day, I just like the monkey. At number 5, we're going in with some real heat right now. Excadrill. This is easily my favorite Pokemon from the Unova region. It's definitely up there with mons like Escavalier and Crocodile. It's just all really cool. It's a really solid typing. And I don't know if there is another ground steel type that was shown up to this point. I know Pokemon like Alolan Dugtrio are ground steel as well. But as far as from Gens 1 to 5, I don't think there are any steel ground types. Although I might be wrong, I think Steelix might be ground steel. But regardless, the fact that Excadrill has a really cool typing and isn't super defensive like Steelix that can actually go offensively if you need it to. And Iris's in the anime, the fact that it disobeyed her and actually became a big powerhouse on her team as well is really cool. It might be because I like the drill on its head and its hands. Regardless, really solid design and definitely a Pokemon that I point to when people say Unova has lame designs. Number 4, we have another steel type in Scizor. Now, in case you wanted to watch that other top 10 that I did, spoilers incoming, Scizor wasn't on the list. And it may be because Scyther got its evolution Kleavor recently that made me appreciate Scizor more. Because it's honestly a low-key, really cool design. Something that I didn't really give a second look at until relatively recently with the release of Kleavor. Not to mention, it's not a color that you typically associate with steel types. I can't think of many steel types whose primary color is red, but at the same time, it just really works. Sure, it's not exactly the best typing overall considering it's quad weak to fire, but just like other Pokemon that I like, it can have the access to Technician, so it can go with bullet punches or even bug bites in case you're feeling frisky. And I was inclined to put its Mega Evolution here as well, but there's just something sleek about the base design of Scizor that I really like. We finally reached the top 3, and at number 3 we have Infernape. You may be wondering why Infernape is this far back on the list, but I still consider it a win. I knew Infernape was a top 5 Pokemon for me. I'm just as surprised as you are to find that it is only a top 3. Obviously, to get it out of the way, it's my channel mascot. I feel like I have to include it. Not to mention, I love Ash and Paul's rivalry in the anime, and I just like the entire design overall. That's honestly what made me love this Pokemon to begin with, which is a similar thing with a lot of these Pokemon. With the exception of some recent ones, a lot of them have influence on me from the anime. Zor, I remember the episode where Ash faced one with his hair across. I already mentioned Iris's Excadrill, Aipom in the Battle Frontier, Mew in the first movie. A lot of these have ties to the anime, so I don't know what it was at my point in life when I watched Ash's battle with Paul in the Sinnoh League, but I just really like this design. And it's a Pokemon like this that made me look back on Pokemon like Aipom that I appreciate them even more. At the runner-up slot, if you watched my previous top 10, this may surprise you, Totodile. The last time that I did a list like this, I cheated and put the whole entire line at number 1, but it's a little bit lame. I feel like if I'm going to commit, I have to choose one from the line to represent the whole Pokemon, or one that I prefer over the others, like a situation with Hattrem. So I decided to go with Totodile, but I do love the whole line. It's just that Totodile is so goofy, and especially Ash's in the anime. And I remember the first game that I played was Pokemon Silver. I don't know for sure if I picked Totodile, but I feel like knowing me, I probably did. He's just a really cool design. I love the red stripes on the back. Even recently in Scarlet and Violet, since you're allowed to capture the starter Pokemon in the wild, I did my best to capture a Totodile in the Lure Ball, just to keep it faithful to the anime. Finally, at number 1 is Poliwhirl. I'm actually a bit surprised that I didn't give Poliwhirl more props when I recorded my other top 10s before. But Poliwhirl is just a Pokemon that has been around, but I never really thought about. Let's just walk through it. In Generation 1, it was revealed Misty got a Poliwhirl in the anime. In Generation 2, Chuck had its evolution Poliwrath as one of his Pokemon, and it also got a new evolution in Politoed. We can skip over Generations 3 and 4 because I wouldn't think much really happens in the way of promoting Poliwhirl. But Generation 5, weather changes to permanent. Politoed gets Drizzle, it's a menace in competitive battling. But Generations 8 and 9, even with the Dex cuts, Poliwhirl and its family make their way into the DLCs of both of those games. And I just couldn't be happier about that. I have so many plushes of Poliwhirl from back in my childhood that it just feels like he is a part of me. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you have your favorite stuffed animal. Poliwhirl is definitely mine as far as Pokemon goes. It's one that I remember always being around. It's just a really cool design. It's not a design that goes overboard. It's just the perfect amount of design to me. And it just epitomizes Generation 1 to me. Those are my top 10 Pokemon. And even just making this at the last second and putting this list together, I was surprised at what Pokemon didn't make it and what Pokemon switched places. If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below. Let me know what your top 10 favorite Pokemon are. And I'll see you next time. Momentai.